Hello, welcome to the Global Networking Show. It's never without adventure. We've been sitting here for the last 10 minutes saying how well we've done, how we've been ready before, earlier than ever before, how there have been no technical hitches, and then when it came time to join you, there was no opportunity to go live. We had to start all over again. So never without hitches, but always with great information and great fun. I'm Andy Lopata. Welcome to the Global Networking Show, and we're only 5 minutes late anyway. I'm joined by my co-host Ivan Misner, who's going to say hello in a second, and in the meantime, Inga Dexnay, who's producing the show, is going to tell you how you can get involved as well.
Hi everyone. If you are watching us live, please join in the show by sending us your questions. You can tweet us using hashtag #GNetShow or post your questions in the comments below on Google+.
Don't forget, everyone, you can visit our YouTube channel or go to globalnetworkingshow.com to review previous shows, but of course after today's show.
You know, this morning I was at a networking event, as I guess you'd expect, and I was giving a presentation there, and my client who brought me in always delights in telling me how much he hates networking. I love the fact he keeps bringing me in, but he hates networking. Of course, when he refers to networking, he's talking about networking events, and he's one of those people who just always finds himself out of his comfort zone whenever he attends an event and he feels that he has to trade small talk.
Well, today's guest is just the shy and retiring type who would normally choose to avoid networking events like the plague. Yet, Charlie is the National Director for BNI in the United Kingdom and Ireland. He has just published his first book. I love the book, Charlie. It's a great read. It's called The Unnatural Networker.
So Charlie, welcome from me as well. Thanks for joining us. I have to ask you a very simple question to start off with. The book's called The Unnatural Networker. Well, why don't you tell us to start off with, what does a natural networker look like?
Well, not like me, for starters. I guess there's just different people out there. Some people just enjoy talking to people, enjoy connecting, enjoy meeting people. Some people don't like it so much. If I have the opportunity to, I'd rather hang out with my mates, if I'm honest. I'll give you an example of the most natural networker I know. It's my mum. My mum is just the best networker I know. She's just brilliant at connecting people. She's just brilliant at, you know, if there's a social event or a party or a more formal networking event, it's just, she's just naturally in there, talking to people, connecting people. You know, she won't be hiding in the corner. She'll just be chatting away and just building relationships with people constantly. And I guess my natural instinct would be to avoid that.
Charlie, can I get you to
No, Charlie, I know your mom, and I totally agree. You're absolutely right. Your mother and my mother was very much the same. Both of them. Have you ever heard of the 3-foot rule? That, you know, if someone's within 3 feet, you start a conversation. Well, I think both your mother and my mother have the 30-foot rule. If you're in the same room, they're going to start a conversation with them.
And Charlie, can we get you to turn your speakers down a little bit again, because we were getting some feedback from you. So, can you guys hear me? Can you nod if you can hear me? Because we're getting, you can hear me, and now everyone else is muted, and we're having.
Charlie's mic is muted.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to unmute it and I can't. Charlie, can you try and unmute your mic? Yeah. Right, there we go. If you can turn down the speakers a bit, we were getting that feedback again. Can I just go on the point that you were saying about your mum is a natural networker? I think that a lot of people think that networking is purely a business pastime, and they think they have to put on an act. You talk about your mum being a natural networker. Isn't it the fact that the people that are the best at this are actually very often just enjoying themselves?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, enjoying it makes it much easier to do, and you know, just having a smile on your face does make it easier. Yeah, I think a lot of people look at networking and think, well, that's just something I do for work, or it's a business thing. but actually it is just talking to people, and having a drink with some friends in the pub is can be networking as much as anything, because you're still building relationships. That's what a lot of people forget. Networking is building relationships, and that could be in a work context, it could be a family context, it could be in a friends context, whatever context it's in. It's all networking, it's all building relationships. So yeah, I would agree with you.
So you found yourself uncomfortable doing it, and you run a national network. How did you get over that? How can you do your job effectively if you find yourself uncomfortable?
Well, there's two real things about it. I think number one, network is something you can learn how to do. It's a learned skill, and it frustrates me that there's not enough education about how to learn how to network out there. I did a business degree when I was at university, and there was modules on marketing, there's modules on strategy, on accounting, on finance, and all the various things that go into a business degree, but not a single word on networking. But you can learn how to do it, and when you apply the simple techniques that there are to help with networking, it does get easier. That's number one. Number two is practice. I've been doing what I do. I've been in BNI for 10 years now, and over time it does get easier, of course, because like anything, practice makes perfect. I guess I still get that slight jolt. I have to go and do it. We had the book launch just a couple of weeks ago. We ran a networking event to do it, and I was just upstairs. It was in our office. We have a room downstairs where we have the launch, and I was there. And I was just thinking, do I have to really go down to my launch? But it still is. I've got to push myself to go and do it and just walk in the room. Once I'm there, the practice and using the techniques you learn really do come in. They're the two things. Learning about it and practicing.
Ivan, you must go to more networking events than anyone else in the world. How do you keep motivating yourself to go through? And there's got to be times when you don't feel like it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are times when I don't feel like it. I look at networking as an opportunity to meet other people that are like-minded. They're interested in the process, and I also cheat a little bit. I have somebody introduce me around whenever possible. Now, that's not always possible, but when it is, I try to set something up in advance where somebody introduces me around, and it makes it very a whole lot easier. Now, a lot of people don't know this about me, but Charlie outed me in his book, where I have said to people from time to time, and it is on my blog, that I'm actually a little bit of an introvert, not quite the extrovert that people would imagine, and so it is a little difficult sometimes to go out there and meet people. So on that topic, Charlie, surely networking events, one would think, are the domain of extroverts. But how do introverts sort of find their inner extrovert in order to succeed, according to your material?
Well, that's a good question, because I remember one of my first exposures to networking, long before I was doing what I do now. It was a temporary job soon after I left, stopped being a student, and I was just sort of finding my way, and I worked for a wine company. And it may have been something that was to do with the fact that this company's networking events always had wine there, but my colleague there, a girl called Nicola, she was just the ultimate networker as I saw it at that time. And she would literally just talk to everyone in the room, and it just freaked me out completely. There's no way I could do that. She was the ultimate extrovert in that sense, and she just chatted to anyone. And that probably is one of the things that made, scared me or freaked me out at the time, and made me unconfident about it. So where does the introvert come in? I think you don't have to, as an introvert, you don't have to think, right, I've got to go out there and just go for it and be an extrovert today to succeed at networking. Because I think introverts have something on their side that really is powerful. As an introvert, you're more likely to spend more time with one particular person. You get into a conversation, that's a bit tough, but once you do, you'll want to stay in that conversation a bit. Naturally, when you keep talking, you'll keep building a relationship. You'll get to know that person you're talking to better, and so the relationship strength that you build from the fact you talk to people for a bit longer actually means a lot. The extrovert is just going to have had a quick chat with everyone in the room. Will they necessarily recall everything about those people? I don't think so. Whereas an introvert, by their very nature, will spend more time and they'll build a better relationship. So I don't think it's a disadvantage at all.
I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote a blog about this called the 5-card trick. I was chatting to a couple of guys there who were what you would call extroverts. That was certainly on the surface, and they were natural sales guys. And I got chatting to one of them after a while, and he was the marketing manager of the firm. And he said that when he came into the business, the guys on his team would rush around the room at every event they went to and just try and make sure that they talked to absolutely everyone. And they would give absolutely everyone they met their business cards, and they thought they were the best networkers on the planet. And he could see the problem with this, that they weren't making any real connections. They weren't getting to know people. They weren't triggering relationships. They weren't finding rapport. And so what he did was he restricted them to 5 business cards. They could only take 5 business cards to each event. So they had to be selective. They had to think about who they wanted to pass that card to. They had to have conversations first. And he said that it had a real impact on the way they approached events, and they slowed down and they listened. And I think you're absolutely right. We have to stop and listen, and that's not an extrovert quality, it's an introvert quality.
I think you're absolutely right, Andy. A good networker has 2 ears and 1 mouth and should use them both proportionately. And I think introverts have an advantage there. Extroverts don't, but those extroverts certainly can make those contacts. They just need to learn how to develop those contacts and build those relationships. And there's a big difference between a contact and a connection. The extroverts tend to make lots of contacts, but they don't necessarily make a lot of connections. That said, anyone can develop this skill. So extroverts can become, make a deeper connection if they work on it, and introverts can push themselves to make those connections if they want to. So, Charlie, what are your top tips for an unnatural networker in setting out to network for the first time? You're on mute, Charlie.
Yeah, no, just saw that. Yeah, I think there's a ton of stuff that people can do. I think the key one for me is to understand that there's a lot of other people who feel exactly the same. In writing this book and the comments I've had and the feedback I've had since it's been out and talking to people about it, so many people have said, "Oh, I'm exactly the same." And even people people are saying that who I know go to a lot of networking events. They're seasoned networkers. They don't, they're not just trying to set it for the first time. And what that tells me is there's, when you go to a networking event, take a random sample. There might be 150 people in the room. The chances are a whole bunch of them are going to be unnatural networkers as well, and will feel probably as uncomfortable as you do as you walk in the door. And that would be my top tip. Just knowing the fact that other people feel the same, and don't worry about it. Go and talk to them. When I think the key thing that people fear is, how do I actually start a conversation? Trepidation. You walk in the door and there's a big bunch of people. There's a lot of hubbub and noise because everyone's standing out talking, maybe having a coffee or tea or a glass of wine, depending on what sort of event it is. And there's a lot of energy, but there's going to be people in there who are looking lost. Look for those people who are feeling lost. And there's 2 good reasons to do that. Number one, it's easier to get into a conversation with someone who's not already talking to someone, I think. Just go and talk to them. You don't have to interrupt a conversation. And number 2, that's good because it's thinking about it from their point of view. When, they're looking lost, go and talk to them. It will make them feel better, just the fact you've gone and talked to them. So just knowing that other people feel the same would be probably my top tip for any unnatural networker. It's how I feel every time I go to a network. I just psych myself up and say, look, other people feel exactly the same as I do.
Do you find that when you do that, you notice a difference if you go up to them and talk about business, or you go up to them and just relax and chat about the event? I think too often we jump to the what do you do, elevator pitch, exchange and networking dance, and that makes people even less comfortable. Where if you turn around and say, what brings you here, the conversation becomes more natural.
Yeah, I'd agree entirely. And when you do go up to them, having that opening line is often the one that scares people the most, and think, well, what am I going to say? The one I use most often, I've used it hundreds of times in network events, is, do you mind if I join you? And immediately you sometimes get them pulling a face going, well, of course I don't mind you join me, you know, that's what we're here for. And yet you can tell that they felt unnatural as well. So yeah, just getting into a conversation about the event, the scene, the day, the weather outside, you know, just start the conversation and then it can progress. Yeah, absolutely.
Inga, would you like to tell everyone how they can leave questions for us or send us questions?
Sure. So you can do it by tweeting at us using hashtag GNetShow, or you can comment right here on Google+, and you can ask questions or leave your comments. What do you think about natural or unnatural networker?
And we'll be happy to tackle those here with Charlie, or answer the questions that we get sent. Share your comments as well.
I think that there's another area to look at when you're looking at uncomfortable networkers, because I think there's a tendency to go for the comfort zone, and this is what we're talking about, getting out of comfort zones, and head instead for social media. It's giving people an excuse. And I keep meeting people. You know, someone said it to me this week that, you know, I don't do events. I don't need to do events. You know, I do my networking on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. How does that fit with your approach, Charlie? And what advice would you have for people who look at that as the option?
Well, it's a great question, because I genuinely say that I think the advent of social media and allowing people to network online is a good tool for unnatural networkers to use. You know, don't you know, it's there. We should use it. It's a great tool to help network. What I'd say is, in terms of it, networking online allows you to build up your level of contacts very quickly. You know, whatever you're talking about, whether it's contacts on LinkedIn or followers on Twitter or friends on Facebook, you can build up your network very quickly, and you can get a wide network. The question is, how well do you know them? The point that I was making a moment ago about contacts versus connections. I would still argue that face-to-face networking, getting in and out and meeting people face-to-face, is the only way really to build the depth of relationship, i.e. the quality of relationship to really move things forward, you know, in a business context, or you know, moving a friendship forward. So yeah, it's playing that off. The broadness of your network through the number of contacts you have versus the depth of network through the quality of relationships you have. And I think in the modern world, in the 21st century, you can't ignore social media and networking online, because it's stupid not to use it, because it does allow you that access. But equally, at the same time, you've got to have a joined-up approach to marry in your online networking with your face-to-face networking to take the relationship to where it needs to go.
Hey, Charlie, in the book you have a whole section on interesting conversations, and one of the sections is about keeping conversations going and exiting conversations. And I seem to always get asked that question: how do you exit a conversation nicely, tactfully? You want to touch upon that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've been one of my teachers in this regard. I even have to say, in terms of what you've shared with me over time. I think there's sort of quick and easier ways, and there's you know, more complicated ways, but ones that can really help move a relationship on. A very simple one is just to say, I've really enjoyed meeting you. And if you put it in the past tense like that, you know, that's not rude. That's not that's one of your lines. I'm not going to try and claim it as my own. You know, you put it in the past tense, but it's very polite. I've enjoyed meeting you. It was lovely. You know, you can't. That kind of says that's the end of the conversation. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is just to keep your ears open. You mentioned the point of using your ears and mouth in proportion earlier. During the conversation you're having, listen out what they're looking for. Do they want to speak to people in the legal profession? Okay, you sort of register that in their mind as an example, and then, you know, you can perhaps spot out your corner, right, there's someone you know who's in the legal profession. Oh, let me introduce you to this guy over here. You know, you wanted to meet people over here, and that's a great way to exit a conversation, and it does something for them in the process as well.
Can I ask you from the other point of view, Charlie? You know, I was going to say for those of us, but I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to say it as well. I'm also an introvert to a large degree as well. But for those of us who are comfortable, more comfortable in a networking environment, you know, it's not just about you're an unnatural networker, go and deal with it. For those of us who are natural networkers, who are comfortable in that environment, we have a responsibility to help other people feel more comfortable. That's what good networkers do. It's about other people, not about them. So for anyone who is more comfortable in that position, what do they need to be aware of? What do they need to do if they see someone who genuinely does look uncomfortable?
I think you're absolutely right. We do have an obligation to go and help people, and I think in terms of writing the book that I've done, you know, I've realised there is such a huge portion of people who do feel uncomfortable with this, and I want them to succeed at networking. Networking is a great way to grow your business, a great way to do things, and get where you want to be in life. So yeah, we do have an obligation. I think that the point I made earlier about at an event going and talking to people look worried, go and talk to them. That's a nice thing to do. And the other thing is to think about networking isn't always about events. You know, we often associate networking in this context with a big networking event with lots of people there. Networking is, like I said earlier, going for a drink with a group of people in the pub. It's sitting down for a coffee over, you know, in a one-to-one setting. That's networking too. So a natural network, if they know their contacts or connections are very unnatural, just go for a coffee with them. You know, that's a great way to build a relationship. It's not always about meeting new people. It's about reconnecting with your existing people. And so you're right. We have natural networkers, people who are seasoned, people who are good at networking. You have got an obligation to do it. Look out for people in your network that can do as much. Go and sit down with a coffee with them. That will help build a relationship just as much as going to any big networking event.
I'm really pleased you said that, because I think that it's something that a lot of people overlook. I know your business is networking events. I know, you know, you're offering that opportunity. But as you say, it's not the be-all and end-all. And a key part of a successful networking strategy is making sure you turn to your existing network. You develop the relationships and the relationships with them as well. So we didn't meet at networking events, you know, we make sure that we meet up for lunch, not on a hugely regular basis, but certainly if either of us feel that it's been too long since we sat down, we meet up for lunch, and that's what you need to be doing with your network all the time.
Yeah, and an interesting point I should just say about us. We met for lunch 2 or 3 weeks ago, wasn't it? And you know, for the first part of the conversation, we were just talking about the football. You know, we do that. It's easy to let that conversation carry on and on and on because we're both passionate about that. But yeah, no, absolutely. Just connecting with people, having lunch with them, having a coffee with them. I think it's an underlooked part of networking.
And Charlton are still unbeaten, by the way.
You know, we've talked about someone connecting with somebody else at a networking event, you know, putting two people together, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I think that that's really, in many ways, easier for the unnatural networker, somebody who doesn't like going out and meeting a lot of new people. It's the perfect technique for them to take two people they do know and put them together at a networking event. Because they do tend to go deeper into those relationships, the introverts. They tend to go deeper. They know who's in the room that they can put together and introduce to one another. And that is, I think, a really powerful technique for someone who's good at networking. And another example of how an introverted business person can actually network effectively.
I think the irony of that as well is, you know, this is a conversation about people who are nervous about networking and find it difficult. That is actually an advanced networking technique. You know, putting other people together in the middle of a conversation, you're actually using, you know, the question originally was about how do you get out of a conversation, but actually you're using it as a way to put people together. That's a high level of networking, I would say. So yeah, no, that's an interesting irony there.
So Charlie, no, go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, we've clearly got a very introverted, uncomfortable, unnatural audience today who don't want to ask us any questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so if anyone does have any question you want Charlie, Ivan, and I to look at, then type it in now, and we will get it in for you. Ivan.
So Charlie, you have a whole section in the book on follow-up after you meet people, and I think this is an important topic for networking. How does the unnatural networker follow up?
Well, follow-up is one of the simplest things that you can do, and it's great for unnatural networkers. I think it's something that really allows you to differentiate yourself from a lot of other networkers. I know a lot of extroverted, you know, network round the room types of people who just don't follow up. And if you don't follow up, then the networking is actually a waste of time. All follow up is, just for the uninitiated, is doing what you say you're going to do. If you say you're going to send something over to someone, or you say you're going to meet for a coffee later, or you say you're going to send an email to them, just do what you say you're going to do and continue the relationship building process. And I argue quite strongly in the book that it's a differentiator for the unnatural networker. It's so simple to do. You just have to do what you say you're going to do. That's it. And it's just crazy that so many people don't do it. Seasoned networkers and novices alike.
So with the last question is going to come from me, as we've got such shy audience today, and I actually want to start with Ivan on this, because Ivan, as Charlie said, you've written the books on this, and you're aware of this. We've asked Charlie for his top tip. What's yours? You've
asked Charlie for what?
No, we've asked Charlie for his top tip for unnatural networkers. What's yours?
Oh gosh, the one secret to success for the shy networker is there is no one secret. That it's really a whole number of things, and Charlie talks about a number of those really important things in his book. Understanding the room, understanding open twos versus closed twos. He's got the diagrams in there. The fact that a networker has two ears and one mouth, should use them both proportionally. I think that's really important. And that just because it doesn't come natural doesn't mean you can't be good at it. And the truth is, it's like being a salesperson who doesn't sell or doesn't know how to sell. You can develop those skills, and I think you can develop. And Charlie opens up his book with the fact that in order to build a powerful network, you can learn how to do this. It is a learned skill. And so I think those are the things that are probably important.
Great. Well, if you want to learn those skills, if you want to know more, The Unnatural Networker is, I'm sure, at all good bookstores and a few not so good bookstores, and all the online bookstores now. So that's The Unnatural Bookstore, The Unnatural Networker by Charlie Lawson. Charlie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, and thanks, Inga, for your sterling role as a producer of the show.
And please connect with the Global Networking Show on Facebook and Twitter. Share the show with your friends and your business contacts. You can also get information about the show by going to www.globalnetworkingshow.com.
Now, my copy of The Unnatural Networker, I know, is in the post. In the meantime, I've nearly finished this fantastic book called Not Knowing by Stephen D'Souza and Diana Renner. And Stephen and Diana are going to be our guests on the next edition of the Global Networking Show. That's on the 26th of November. The time is going to be 8 p.m. in the UK. Ivan, I think, did you say it was midday? You do the American time zones, because you're better at that than I am.
Absolutely. It's 12 noon Pacific time in the US, 3 p.m. Eastern. For those of you all around the world, I recommend a website, timeanddate.com. That's time and the word and, A-N-D, date.com. That website will tell you what time 8 p.m. UK time is. For the Global Networking Show, for Inga, for Andy, for myself, is Ivan Misner. Goodbye to everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Bye.